Yo everyone, today I'm going to be sharing with you my 5 tips and tricks on how you could be mastering F1 2025, going through a raft of information all the way from tires to wet weather condition. But the first part of this video is going to be dedicated to the tires and how overstressing them, oversliding them will have a huge negative effect, maybe on your qualifying, but definitely on your racing performance. In qualifying, you can get away with it, and having an extra 3% or tire deg, to be honest, is not really the end of the world. It'll cost you a few temps here or there, but having 2 to 3% more tire wear per lap in a race will be disastrous and really could be a leading factor between doing a one-stop strategy or a 2, maybe even a 3 top strategy in certain racing conditions. So let's get on top of that and really let's master this aspect of the game. So first of all, if you look to the right hand side of the screen, we have 8% tire deg and 7% on the rear, of course 8% on the front, after only 1 lap of racing here in the Chinese circuit here on F1 2025. By the time we go through the final corner, it's probably going to add another percent of wear. Let's see what it does. Actually, no, it stays at 8%. So 8% tire deg in only 1 lap of racing here in China. That is huge, and as you can see, if we overstress the front left compound, it instantly is going to be shooting up to 15% tire deg in already 1 lap and 1 corner around this circuit. That is huge and just shows the work that goes on behind the scenes for the tires to be more sensitive in this year's iteration of the Formula 1 game. If you overstress them, overslide them, they'll have disastrous effects to your tire deg. So now I'm going to show you how you can be recovering that and how you can stop that from happening. So just be patient with the car, drive very smoothly, very carefully into the corner. Just be super careful of your tire. Often in this year's game, and I think it's true in real life, of course I've not driven a real Formula 1 car, but from when I watch the broadcast, listen to the driver radios, and listen to the general feedback of the tires in real life as well, it really does feel like a slow is fast situation in the race especially, and the person who can really manage their tires the best, more often than not, comes out on top. So that, I do feel, has been recreated in the game fairly well, although it is quite frustrating to have to manage the tires so much during a race, and it's much more fun just to push flat out every corner, every lap. But this is the cards that we have with us, how the tires have been simulated. And like I say, I think they've done a good job of recreating how they are in real life. Of course, again, I've not driven a real Formula 1 car with modern Pirelli tyres, so I'm only speculating how it would be in real life, and I don't actually know. And I'm not going to claim to know something that I don't. Anyway, getting back to the point. How you can really be managing that is just smooth, careful inputs. Of course, wheel flicking is still part of the F1 2025 game. That's where you do aggressive wheel inputs into the corner, and to be honest, that is quite negative for your tire wear. So if you are looking to manage your tires during a racing stint, I would generally try to avoid doing that and just be very smooth, very careful on that front axle. And also, speaking about the rear axle, the same is true. If you overslide them and overwork them, as you're going to see, we're going to be super aggressive through these corners right now. Lock up the rears on the entry, and you can see just a bit of drifting, and we're just going to add a lot of rear tire wear already in, and you can see just this drifting alone, what looks really cool, but it's very good save. We almost spun it there. We're going to lose some track position, but you can see we added so much tire wear to the car just by sliding throughout those corners, and it was already, yes, a very exaggerated example by drifting so much and sliding so much, but it can show you just how easily tire wear can be added to the game and to the car on this year's iteration of the Formula 1 game. So just keep that in mind. Smooth is fast, and if you can be smooth, you probably will be fast in this situation. In qualifying, of course, a tire deg really does not matter that much, so you can do more wheel flicking and be more aggressive. But yeah, try not to overstress, try not to overwork the tire, and it will repay you in the long run. Building on to the second point, that is going to be about driving 96 to 98% of the tire's limit during the race. This is really one of my best advice that I can give to people about this new iteration of the Formula 1 game, and that is going to be driving, like I say, 96 to 98% of the grip limit. If you drive at 100%, that's a-okay for qualifying, and it's going to repay you quite well for qualifying. But in the race, just really think about driving a few percent under limit so you don't end up sliding the tires like this going into the corner. And if you watch the real top people from League Racing at the moment, the Jarnos, the Otises, of course Freddie Rasmussen as well, but he doesn't really stream or publicize his onboard footage, so it's quite hard to see. But I'm very confident to say that Freddie is just driving so beautifully at that limit, managing the tires, managing everything at that sort of 96 to 98% of the pushing range, and allowing those tires to do their work and to have good longevity as well. And I really feel like that's such an underrated part of this year's iteration of the Formula 1 game. F1 24 was all about just push, especially because of the super aggressive wheel flicking. I think people could just feel like they're pushing all the time, more or less, on that year's iteration of the Formula 1 game, whereas F1 2025, we're just coming in to get a new set of tires as well, because I have smoked those when doing the drifting and the sliding. But yeah, this year's game really focus on being super smooth, super precise, super delicate, and it will really repay you in the long run. Speaking of being just very precise, to be honest, we're going to be now speaking about the battery management. I've done a whole video on this topic, but I'm going to try and summarize it up into a bit more of a condensed form and a bit more of a condensed advice for this specific video here today. So the battery is so powerful, and I really see people overconsume it so much in the opening laps of the race. Of course you have to attack, of course you need to defend, and you need to fight for your position on the circuit. But I really feel like a lot of people push overly hard with the battery in the first few laps of the race and find themselves being vulnerable from lap 5, lap 6 onwards, and they don't have much battery to fight with. So really what you want to be doing is picking out a landmark every single track that you can be using every single lap. So that might be the start-finish line, that might be a certain curving, that might be the first, second or third sector split around the lap. Just whatever you find will be consistent. Could be this DHL advertising board. So the point is, try to have a reference around the lap that is always consistent for you, and the goal and the target is that when you're running laps by yourself and you don't have to be attacking and or defending, try to every single time across that landmark just have the same battery level, if not more battery level, than you started the previous lap with. For example, across the start-finish line, we had 30% on the battery remaining. So my goal around this lap is to now be as efficient as possible, while also using the battery as quickly as possible for lap time potential, but also get back across that start-finish line with 30% battery and or more in the perfect well. So you can see we're using the battery on the bottom right. Oh my god. What have the AI done? Well, we got a red flag, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to get back to doing this tip and trick in just a second. Honestly, I have no idea what the AI were playing at there. It seemed like there was about a 7 or 8 car pile-up. Anyway, getting back into the video and what I was describing before, of course, we've lost our reference. Nothing I could do about that because the AI doing AI things, apparently. But yeah, you just really want to have that sort of strong consistency that you know where you can use the battery around the lap, while also getting back to the start-finish line with the same amount, if not more battery than you started that lap with. Mixing the overtake button with the medium. I very rarely use the hot lap mode like I'm using on the bottom right hand of the screen right now, quite simply because I find it to be quite inefficient. I find, especially in qualifying, the best combination is using the medium ELS mode mixed in with the overtake button, as I find that the overtake button is the best to get off the corners with, but then the medium mode is really efficient for spending the remainder of the straight with. This can also be an example here, using the battery to try and overtake with. Of course, you want to just try and get a good exit. I'm on the hard compound tires and they're on the mediums, so it's just very hard to do so. But yeah, if you're in a situation like this where you don't really have much to gain ahead, you don't really have much to lose behind. Of course, at this situation, we have to ensure Gasly doesn't attack us. But yeah, just think about using your battery in a smart, strategical way that you don't overconsume it and you leave yourself with good battery to attack later in the lap. For example, if I overconsume my battery on the back straight right there, then I wouldn't have enough battery to really have a proper go down this straight. So now we can stay nice and close to Piastri, and we're going to sort of do a switchback here and allowing ourselves just to remain close enough to go down the inside. Oh, a little bit of argy-bargy right there. He's still going to remain his car on the inside, but yeah, if I basically overconsume the battery on the first back straight there, then I wouldn't have had enough battery to stay close enough to make that move work down the actual pitch straight. So that is really the segment on the battery. Just be smart, be strategical with it, don't overconsume it, pick out your landmark references for each lap to lap so you don't overwork it, and you can always have enough battery juice in the pack that if you do want to be attacking, defending, or even going for fastest lap. So the next segment is going to be about the wheel rotation angle, and then we'll jump over to the wet weather in just a second. See, in F1 2025, you really want to keep a low rotation angle. So I'm using, to be honest, 300. Actually, this is the wrong one. This is my keyboard one. There we go. This is my correct configuration right now. So you can see that I'm using 300 on the wheel rotation. Why is that? Because I feel like in the first initial steering of this F1 2025 game, it's quite lazy, to be honest. It's quite lethargic. It doesn't really react that quickly. I feel like they did this as a reaction to the wheel flicking, possibly on F1 2024, and just to make the steering wheel a bit more lethargic, a bit less reactive straight away, can kind of help that sort of wheel flicking feeling, whereas dampening it down like they have done on F1 2025 can sort of remove that. As a natural net effect though, to sort of maximize lap time potential, I went down to 300 wheel degrees of rotation just to sort of get that car to be a bit sharper on the turn-in. So yeah, if you're on the racing wheel, my recommendation is anywhere between 290 to probably 320 I would use at the maximum rotation. But yeah, I just find 300 is the best for me. If you do find yourself like the car just isn't reacting to how you want it to do, you feel like the car just doesn't really turn when you want it to turn, then yeah, I would go down on the wheel rotational angle, and that can help you make the car just that little bit sharper, a little bit more reactive, and to be in a 1-to-1 ratio with the inputs that you do. And yeah, on the opposite side, if you feel like the car is just too sharp for you and it's just too much work to really focus on where the car is going to be, then up the wheel rotational angle. But to be honest, I only experience that when I go sort of below 290. And then there, I sort of feel like the car is too sharp for me. So like I say, anywhere between 290, 320 degrees of rotation is a good way to go. And yeah, I run 60% on the force feedback strength, just simply because if you go above 65, you get force feedback clipping. If you don't know what force feedback clipping is, that's when the force feedback signal is too strong, basically, from the game, and it just loses fidelity and it loses detail. Think of it like a car speaker, right? That if you have your car speaker super loud, yes, you get loads of vibrations, but you don't actually hear the words of the song. Whereas if you have it super quiet, you have to focus so much to hear the little words of the song, and you get no extra like vibration from the bass, etc. of the music. So you have to be picking the perfect volume to listen to your song, and the same is true with the perfect strength of your force feedback. Have it too high, then it will just be overwhelming and the game just simply won't tell you all the detail that you're looking for. And have it too low, and quite simply the game will try to tell you, but it'll be too low and not strong enough really for your hands, arms, and your feeling to be picking up. Again, that only applies if you're on the wheel and if you have the controller. Unfortunately, this part of the segment of the video is not probably that helpful to you. There is something in the steering rate that if you are on the controller, then possibly increasing this value can make the wheel a bit sharper or turn in a bit sharper from the car, what may help you in your own way as well. I like to have all of these set to 0 with everything, so my inputs are 1-to-1 with what my hands and feet are doing. If you put linearity setting, what does come standard at 25, basically what this does is it makes the first half of the travel longer and the second half of the travel of the pedal shorter, so it becomes really good for basically trail braking at the final 10-15%. But yeah, there's less feeling at the top of the pedal, or when you're going closer to 100%, I should say. What, to be honest, if you're not on a load cell pedal, can be very useful. If you're on a load cell pedal, I would still recommend having it on 0. That's just my feeling, to keep it in a 1-to-1 ratio with the game. A dead zone can be useful if you're just being holding down your pedals and you always see like a 1-2% input no matter what you do. And the saturation is opposite than the linearity setting. It basically makes the second half of the travel longer and the first half shorter. But to be honest, I really wouldn't recommend. The cars are too powerful, too sensitive to be wanting to give away that feeling at the start of the throttle zone. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And that is a brief description on sort of the force feedback settings and the wheel rotation. And now let's head over to the rain. As you can see now, we're in the wet weather conditions of the Chinese GP. One of my favorite tracks to be driving in the wet weather across pretty much every Formula 1 game I've played. So, getting to the heart of the tips and tricks for the wet weather though, and that's going to be in the straight line, driving off the racing line to the slightly damper and where the standing water is, or where the extra moisture is, down the straights. What this is going to do is help cool down your tires and stop them overheating so much, or to stay in an operating window for the following corner. This is so powerful when you're going from the intermediate tires to the dry tires in that segment of the race that the track are getting drier, drier, and drier every lap, every corner, every sector that you're passing by. Just to be finding out that standing water, to be cooling down the tires, that little extra bit can be so powerful for your tire performance and minimizing your tires overheating in that situation. Of course, the more that your tires overheat, the less grip and consistency that you're going to get from them. So really keep that in mind, and where you can like search out those extra bits of standing water, just do it. Trust me, you're going to find an extra performance and an extra advantage compared to your opponents. For example, just here, a few seconds on the standing water is just going to help bring down that tire temperature that little bit more to stop them overheating. So just keep that in mind and try to utilize that to your advantage. Whereas in the corners, the opposite is completely true. In the corners, you want to avoid going off the racing line with everything that you can. Quite simply because it's like a grip slider in the F1 2025 game, and the more damp that the track is, the less grip that you're going to have. And of course, when driving off the racing line, as you can visibly see even right now, the track is more damp. So you really want to search out and keep on the driest segment of the track possible when going through this sort of intermediate and wet tires. If you do find yourself driving on the extra damp parts of the circuit, like I'm going to show you in turn 1 right now, you're going to see that the car is just going to really struggle for the grip. But as soon as you're back to the drier part of the circuit, the car is going to grip up again almost instantaneously, just highlighting the difference between the damper parts of the circuit and the drier parts of the circuit. Of course, this is easier said than done, because yeah, it's very difficult always to follow the time tracks of what the racing line is deemed to be by the AI, because of course a racing line drying is just AI generated and follows the path that the AI go around the circuit. So sometimes it's not going to be completely optimized. For example, going into this corner right now, just to go into replay mode so we have a bit longer to be looking at it. Gonna fast forward and also turn off the HUD, but now going through here into the right-hander, the car twitching this way and that, but you can see here, optimally, you would open up the right-hander as much as possible by going to the curbing on the left-hand side, whereas the AI don't do that. The AI stay to the middle of the track before turning to the right-hander, so you really have to pick and choose what you want to be doing for your advantage right now. To be honest, in most cases, you would sort of avoid that standing water on the outside of the track. Otherwise, the extra sliding, the lack of grip is typically not worth it. In some situations, it may be, but yeah, that's just an example on picking your racing line smartly and understanding what the AI are choosing their lines, because it can also help you map out the extra bit of grip, extra bit of performance as you go around the circuit. So that being said, let's just load back into the game. There we go, lovely jubbly. And yeah, that's sort of been my segment on the wet weather driving. Just try to keep on that drier part of the track in the corners and stay on the wetter part of the track on the straights, so you maximize your cornering potential and maximize your cooling potential for the tires down the straight, and that will allow you to stay in a better operating window for the tires to be maximizing them around the corner. Everything can be basically helping everything in the wet weather conditions, so just keep that in mind and maximize everything that you can do so. So that being said, this has been 5 tips on how to be mastering F1 2025. If you have any questions or anything you want me to expand upon in the comments, do feel free to leave a comment and I'll try my best to get back to you. So with that being said, I've been Brendon Leigh. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Grazie ragazzi. Ciao ciao. Bye bye.